Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. So today is the second video of our CI/CD week. The first video was on Jenkins shared libraries, which was a very good video where we understood how to implement the shared libraries end to end. And the next video will be on GitLab end-to-end CI/CD project, which will be a Java application similar to the ultimate CI/CD pipeline that we have done. So if you are a newcomer to our channel and haven't watched our previous videos, please subscribe to our channel for more such interesting videos. Okay, so what is the agenda for today? Today, we'll be learning about GitHub Actions using self-hosted runners, like I just mentioned. So previously, we did a project on, GitHub Actions itself in our 45 days of DevOps course, but that was completely on the GitHub hosted runners. So today, we'll try to understand what is the difference between self-hosted runners and GitHub hosted runners. And apart from that, I'll also teach you people how to use the self-hosted runners. That means what is the configuration that is required, how to install, how to set up. We'll use an EC2 instance for this, and we will do the entire configuration live. And end of the video, we'll do a live project, which is a very simple project everybody can do after watching this video. And you will try to set up the self-hosted runners by yourself and deploy a Python project on it. So that will be the end target of the video. And after that, we will also try to understand what is the advantage of using self-hosted runners, when it has to be used, why it has to be used. We'll take a look at few interview questions and finally compare it with Jenkins. Why we will try to compare it with Jenkins? Because last video, and we also did a ultimate CI/CD pipeline on Jenkins. So many viewers have implemented Jenkins CI system by watching our videos. So it is very good to understand how GitHub Actions is different from Jenkins and what will be the future scope of GitHub Actions and Jenkins. So without any delay, I'll start with the video because I know there are a lot of things to cover and I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. First of all, what is a self-hosted runner? Now, I have been talking about self-hosted runner. This is what we'll be talking about, but what exactly is it? So let's say you're using systems like Jenkins. There is only one way that you can do is, you can install your Jenkins and then you create another EC2 instance or a Docker container, which will act as a runner. Now, what is runner? Runner is a place where your job gets run. In Jenkins world, you call it as an agent or worker node. That's where your application gets run on Jenkins. But in terms of GitHub Actions, and similarly in the future videos where we'll talk about GitLab, so this is categorized into self-hosted runners, and in GitHub, we call it as GitHub hosted runners. So what is GitHub hosted runner? So when you run a GitHub project or when you build a CI project on the GitHub system, let's take open source projects like Kubernetes or Argo CD or Istio. So what happens is their CI system is directly built on GitHub because their source code is also hosted on GitHub, and GitHub Actions using the GitHub hosted runners is completely free for open source and public projects. So when you take a runner from GitHub and execute your project on the GitHub runner itself, you don't own that runner. It's a public runner GitHub gives you by the execution of the CI pipeline. And once your execution is done, then the runner gets terminated. So you don't have any ownership with the runner. Did you understand? You don't have any ownership with the runner. So that is a GitHub hosted runner. And that's what we did in the last video. I'll put the link in the description for the GitHub Zero to Hero series that we have done, a simple video, and you can also follow that project if you are interested in GitHub hosted runners. It's an easy way of doing it. But today's video is dedicated on the self-hosted runners. So self-hosted runner is the same concept of what we do in Jenkins. So what do we usually do in Jenkins? When you take a Jenkins master to execute your workloads, you would create a Jenkins worker or Jenkins agent. And this can be an EC2 instance or Docker container like we have seen in the past. Similarly, in GitHub Actions, you can do the same thing. Now, why would you do that? Because you already have a GitHub hosted runner. And if it is a public project, you are getting it for free. Then what is the purpose of using a self-hosted runner? This should be your first question. If not, so the answer to this is GitHub hosted runners. They're really good. They're really amazing. There are different distributions. You can use them for a lot of purpose, a lot of open source projects. Use it. But let's say you are an enterprise company. You are not open source. Your code is not open. You are using private repositories or you are using public repositories, but still, you have a lot of configuration where you require huge servers to execute your applications. Okay. So what are the two things that I said? One is you are a private project. Okay. What is the first one? You are a private project. That means your code is not open. Nobody can access your GitHub repository. It's a private GitHub repository. And what is the second case? The second case is that your runners that are provided by GitHub are not good enough for your project. Let's say you require a runner that is 32 GB RAM. For some various reasons, probably you are running end-to-end tests that takes huge amount of resources, or probably you have very special requirements of packages that are not coming with the GitHub hosted runners. So that can also be another case. So these are two reasons. And coming with the first reason, you also can think of a security approach, right? So let's say you are an banking application. Why would you put your code on a runner where you don't have any information about it? Technically, it's a GitHub hosted runner. You don't know where is it hosted. It can be hosted in Antarctica. It can be hosted in any other place. You don't know anything about it. You don't know if this server or if this runner is sharing data with any other company. So when security is a key role, even in that case, you should not be using a GitHub hosted runner. So I hope you understood. One is security, other is private repositories. And the third thing is you don't have a GitHub hosted runner that is matching your requirements, probably because of resources, probably because of dependencies. So these are the three criteria where you will not use the GitHub hosted runner and use a self-hosted runner. Now, saying that, because I have said a lot of things, let's deep dive practically and see how to attach this self-hosted runner to GitHub Actions. So this self-hosted runner can be anywhere in the world. For the purpose of video and to make it very simple, I'm taking an EC2 instance. Let me refresh this. So let's quickly launch an EC2 instance. And what I'll do is I'll show you how to attach this EC2 instance. And I'll show you what happens if you attach this EC2 instance, how in live GitHub communicates this EC2 instance. Like in Jenkins, your Jenkins master communicates with Jenkins worker using the SSH protocol, right? In Jenkins, you use the SSH protocol for communicating between the master and agent. Whereas in GitHub Actions, let's see how does this happen. You have to do a set of steps. Let's do that set of steps live and let's implement this. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to create a instance here, right? So launch instance. Perfect. So let me put the name as GitHub. I think my internet is a bit slow. Please bear with me. So name is GitHub. And the second thing is I need to select the OS type here. Let me go with Ubuntu. After that, I'll go with the default instance configuration. I don't have any problem with it. And I already have a key pair. You can use your own key pair, or you can also create a new one. So if you already know this configuration, you can forward the video, or you can, go skip the video for next 1-2 minutes. But there is one important thing that I'm going to show you, how to configure the inbound and outbound traffic rules for this specific configuration, because you have an external thing called GitHub that is talking to your AWS account. So how does these two things communicate? What should be your inbound traffic rules? What should be your outbound traffic rules? That is again something that I'm going to explain you. Okay. Just give me a second. Okay, so now my EC2 instance is getting launched. I did not use any additional configuration till now, but after this, I am going to configure the inbound and outbound traffic rules, which are very important. So the instance is getting started. Once the instance is started, what I'll do is I'll move to the security tab and I'll modify the inbound and outbound traffic rules. Open the HTTPS, HTTP port, both only the HTTP and HTTPS port for the inbound and outbound. Nothing more than that, because your AWS account and GitHub account, both of them can be or cannot be in the same network. Sometimes you might be using a public hosted GitHub account, whereas your AWS might be within a VPC, or other way around, your AWS, you might have a public EC2 instance, but your GitHub, it can be an enterprise GitHub, which is sitting inside your office network. So there can be any reason, and you have to be very, very careful in opening the ports. If you misconfigure the ports, then there is a very good, how do I say that? Yeah, there is a very good chance of you running into some security concerns. So that's why make sure you open the right inbound and outbound traffic rules. So go to the security groups. Like I told you, only open port 80 and port 443, which is HTTP and HTTPS ports in both the inbound and outbound traffic rules. Go below. Here you will see an option for edit inbound rules. Again, if you already know this, how to edit the inbound and outbound traffic rules, feel free to skip the video for the next 30 seconds or minute. So I'll show the same thing for people who are new to this. Just go here and make sure you do not select anything other than that. There is an option called all traffic, which can be easy, but do not do that. Go to HTTP and select anywhere IPv4. If you know your GitHub IP address, if it's hosted within the network, then yeah, you can use the specific network as well. And then again, add a new rule where you will open the HTTPS. Okay. So if you don't do this, then you might run into security issues, or you might even run into networking issues where your AWS is not able to connect to your GitHub Actions runner. Now go to the outbound traffic rules. And again, in the outbound traffic rules, what you will do is edit the outbound rules and do the same thing. That is, add a rule. And here you will add this one here, HTTP. Anywhere IPv4, if you want to restrict that as well, more than good. HTTPS. So once you do this, the next step would be, I'll show you quickly what happens with my application, the application that I've configured for the GitHub Actions GitHub hosted runner. Like I already have a workflow here, and within this workflow, there is one switch where you can convert from GitHub hosted runner to the self-hosted runner. That is in your CI file. So if you are looking at this this repository for the very first time, so this is the GitHub Action 0 to Hero repository that I've created. There are already 145 folks and 47 stars on this repository. People who have watched our YouTube video, they have already tried this and were very successful in deploying their first GitHub Actions and understanding the concept of GitHub Actions. So quickly, there is a .github folder. Inside you create a workflows folder and you write your actions file. This is how GitHub Actions work. And the switch is here. So here, if you put the label or the build runner label, let's say you want to use a GitHub hosted runner, then you can simply use whatever you would like. For example, Ubuntu latest, then GitHub will create a runner for you, and which has Ubuntu as the operating system. Okay, so I'll commit the changes and show you. Now what happens is, as soon as there is a change made to the repository, GitHub will execute the GitHub actions on every commit that is made to the repository, because my build action is push. See the yellow dot here. Once the CI is successful, what is the CI here? It's a very simple CI file that I've written for the addition Python functionality that is there in this repository. So here, see what is the actions file doing? On push, that means on every single commit that is made to the repository, use this runner called Ubuntu latest, which is a GitHub hosted runner. We are not creating any host till now, or we haven't attached our runner yet, and it is just running this GitHub actions for both Python 3.8 and 3.9. I choose this. If you don't want to have this, you can remove the strategy matrix, and it will only run on the Python version that you have installed here on this machine. Okay, and it is simply running a Python program for the addition.py, and it is testing it, nothing more than that. Okay, so you see here, if you go back, there is a green check mark symbol that is available on the commit. That means to say the GitHub actions is successful. Now we have verified that this step is fine. That means you have an existing project that is with GitHub hosted runners and it is working fine. Now let's switch that to the self-hosted runner. How do you do that? Simple. Go to the settings tab here, and in the settings tab, you will find an option if you scroll down for actions. Okay, so click on the actions, go to the runners. There are two tabs here. One is general and one is runner. Okay, now you can add a new self-hosted runner. Click on the new self-hosted runner You can add any number of self-hosted runners. Only thing is provide the details here. Is it a Mac OS runner, Linux runner, or Windows runner? And be careful about the architecture type. Let's say you are using your personal laptop as a runner. Make sure your personal laptop architecture is correct. Your personal laptop can be of ARM architecture. It can be of AMD 64 architecture or anything else. And then there are a set of steps present here. You need to exactly run these steps. And I'm going to stop the screen sharing here because there is some sensitive information here, and you should not share that sensitive information with anyone. That is the token. So if you share the token that is available in this page, so all that you need to do is to run these commands one by one. I'm going to do it, but I'll pause the recording, and once the steps are done, I'll start the recording. And the thing is, the token should not be shared with anyone because it is equivalent to your access token, and anyone who has this token, they can play with your GitHub account. So that's the reason why. Just give me a second. I'll run all of these commands, and you should also do the same thing. And once it is done, I'll show you how GitHub talks to the AWS EC2 instance, which is my runner. So just a second here. Okay, I'm back now. And if you see my terminal, I just logged with the EC2 instance, and it says listening for jobs. I just run the last command, that is run.sh, which will typically, what all the steps that are provided on that page will do is download the runner configuration, install the runner configuration, and there is a script called run.sh which you will get through that page. And once you run this run.sh, your GitHub your EC2 instance is configured as a runner, and it will start listening to your GitHub. Now, whenever you make any code change to the GitHub, this runner will look for, okay, should I run or should I execute this job? And if you're okay, I'll execute the job. Okay, that is what this runner will do. Now let us see how this happens under the hood. What I need to do is I need to go back. Okay, so here I need to go back and I need to update my actions file again with the self-hosted tag. Okay, so what I did previously, I switched it to the GitHub hosted. Now I have to change it to the self-hosted runner. So for that, go to the .github workflows, go to the file called firstactions.yaml, and here edit the page and change this one from Ubuntu latest to self-hosted. Okay, that's the only change that you have to make. And once you commit these changes, then your GitHub Actions is ready to execute your jobs on the self-hosted runner. Let's see if it happens or not. Now I made a code change, so I'm expecting GitHub to run the job. Let us see if there is a yellow dot. Perfect. That means on my instance, there should be something running. Let's see here. It says running job build on Python 3.9. Because in the GitHub Actions, we said the job has to be executed 2 times on 2 metrics. One is Python 3.9 and Python 3.8. Let's see now it is successful on Python 3.9. Once it is, then it will run on Python 3.8. It said completed with result succeeded. Running job for 3.8. Once this is also successful, you will notice this yellow dot will change on its own to green. How does that happen? This runner will send out a notification to GitHub back. Okay, that's the reason why we configured the outbound traffic. Okay, so inbound traffic because it has to get a request, outbound traffic because it also has to update back to the GitHub. So let's see once it is completed successfully. Now I am expecting the GitHub Actions to update this one as green. Perfect. It is updated to green. The reason is the runner has sent the information that, okay, I executed whatever information that you have provided in the actions.yaml file, and I confirm that everything is fine. That's when you see this green check mark. Okay, that's the reason why we configured the inbound and outbound traffic. Now is it clear? So this configuration is required. If you miss that configuration, your GitHub Action setup will fail. So what did we learn till now? We learned about the GitHub hosted runner, self-hosted runner, how to use it, how to configure. We understood the why aspect. Although the GitHub hosted runners are free, but they cannot be used in all the cases. What are the 3 cases? I explained at the beginning of the video. You can go back and check it one more time if you want to take a notes of it. Finally, what can be the interview questions? Okay. So the first thing, when someone asks you, where are you running your CI? Let's say you said that my CI is configured on GitHub Actions. The very first thing will be why. When you have tools like Jenkins, when you have options like AWS Code Build, other options, why did you choose GitHub? Okay, so you have to justify your answer, saying that, let's say you're already a public project, then your answer is justified by default because GitHub provides you free resources to run and you are a public project. So there is no question of asking about why. But if you are a private project, then you have to justify it by saying that, okay, so we are an ecosystem that is already on GitHub, let's say here. So this project is already on GitHub and we manage everything on GitHub. Like for example, not just the CI/CD, we also do our agile thing, which is the Scrum thing in this board called projects. We use the Confluence pages here as GitHub Wiki. Then we also use the security, which is GitHub Dependabot, and we get the insights from GitHub. So you are using GitHub to the fullest capacity. Most of the people who are using GitHub, they don't use all the features on GitHub. Actions make sense to you if your project is completely dedicated on GitHub, like open source projects. If you are a company which is doing only the source code management on GitHub, then personally, I will recommend another CI solution. It can be Jenkins, or if you're on AWS, go with the AWS Code Build or anything. But only if you want to dedicate everything on GitHub and use the complete features of GitHub, then go with the actions. After that, okay, let's say you answered the why aspect, then comes your next level questions that are, how do you secure the sensitive information in GitHub? So for that, you can say that we use the settings again, and we can store the variables here in GitHub. Like there is an option called secrets and variables. You can say that we are using this tab to secure the sensitive information. Then the next question would be, how do you write a GitHub CI file? Then you can explain that, in the repository itself, you can create a .github workflows folder. And after that, you have to explain each and every stage that you are writing here. Like, how do you say that your GitHub Actions has to execute on a specific action? You use the keyword called on, followed by, if it is only push, you can say push. If it is push plus pull request, then you can say push, comma, pull request. So this is how you have to explain each and every step that is involved in it. So if required, you feel that there are something that you are not understanding with respect to interview questions, basically GitHub Actions is very easy and there will not be a lot of interview questions. But if you still feel that you need something, you can post that in the comment section. And if I feel that it requires a new video, I'll make a complete new video dedicated to GitHub Actions interview questions. But in general, it's a very simple topic, and there are no such complex things with the GitHub Actions CI. After that, the important thing, that is the comparison with Jenkins. Now, this is very, very important because many people are coming from Jenkins. We did our previous videos on Jenkins. The industry is using Jenkins. Now, how do you take Jenkins versus GitHub Actions? To answer this question, if it is a public project, GitHub Actions is the solo winner. If you are talking about open source projects, or if you are talking about projects that is public, there are no restrictions, you can keep your code open, then GitHub Actions is the solo winner. There is no competition with Jenkins because you can get your entire things done for free on GitHub. Microsoft provides you free servers. Okay. But let's say you are a private project, then in such cases, it is recommended at this point of time today to choose Jenkins, because Jenkins has although you have to buy your own servers, you have to create Docker containers or any other things, it has a good orchestration and you have a lot of support with Jenkins that GitHub Actions fails at this point of time. Using Jenkins, you can download a lot of plugins, you can install a lot of plugins. There are very good inbuilt integrations that GitHub Actions is still trying to get there. But with Jenkins, you already have that. There are a lot of automations. Even in the ultimate CI/CD pipeline, I have explained you how easy is it to configure Sonar and all the other things. GitHub Actions will reach there, but at this point of time, if it is a public project, GitHub Actions is the winner. Whereas if it is private projects, then yeah, you have more and more things that you can achieve with Jenkins at this point of time. So it's a short description, and this is how I would explain GitHub Actions with Jenkins. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Please try the self-hosted runners by yourself and get the confidence of how to use self-hosted runners with GitHub Actions. And tomorrow's video, probably tomorrow or Sunday, I'll post a video on GitLab where I'll show you end-to-end CI/CD pipeline on GitLab, mostly on Sunday. Stay tuned for that video because it's an end-to-end project. Thank you so much for watching the video like every time. Take care, everyone. Bye.